Good afternoon, everybody. This is Justin Publon with WisconsinWX.com. It's 3 p.m. here on Monday, July 26th, 2021. We have a couple, perhaps 3 severe weather events potentially in the next 3 days that we should talk about right now. We're going to start with tonight, where the SPC has issued an enhanced risk for severe weather across the Duluth area, I guess, and that includes northwest Wisconsin and portions of eastern Minnesota, but also into the slight risk area, which is located north of Eau Claire over to about Escanaba, north of Wausau in there. So, I mean, that's a big chunk of northern Wisconsin, potentially having potential to see severe weather tonight. Let's go take a look at the radar here. This afternoon, so here at 3 p.m., we have some radar tags popping up across eastern Wisconsin, which was not, really well advertised by the models, but it's not that it's inconsequential, but there's really just nothing going on, not too much going on. It's a thunderstorm on here. Earlier we had a special text on this cell here, but that has since expired and there's no warnings. What's happening is you're getting some cells popping in the instability gradient axis here. There's a pool of instability and they're right in the middle of it popping here. So yeah, meanwhile, the main show is going to be over here tonight, at least this mid to late afternoon starting, and then overnight probably. As it goes southeastward across northern Wisconsin, you're probably going to run out of energy a little bit and you'll see a downturn, but it should remain somewhat severe up in here. So we'll see. And these storms could probably make all the way down to, sorry, this is not working the way it should be. Should be making their way down into central Wisconsin, where they'll probably die off a little bit. Let's take a look at the SPC forecast, and here is what you see here is the enhanced region up here in, centered over Duluth. And then let's go take a look at the text. Oh, for upper Michigan, northern Wisconsin, this afternoon into tonight, a broad upper ridge right here. Oop, I lost it. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second. This just updated, so this is new. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Okay. Here at 2:55 p.m., they issued a new update to the severe this SPC Outlook in here, and we're just going to read that right now. I haven't had a chance to look at it either. Supercells and Boeing structures with large hail and damaging winds are expected this afternoon, basically on the western fringe of that enhanced zone where they'll fire up. The only change, they're basically just talking about a change there in south central Kansas and something else going on. I'm not real going to go talk about that. Well, let's go back to what I intended to talk about right here. Okay, I'll circle it for you. All right, so a broad upper ridge is prominent across much of the CONUS today, with stronger westerly flow stretching from Montana to the Great Lakes region. At the surface, a moist air mass with dew points in the mid-60s extends as far north as North Dakota/Minnesota, where strong daytime heating will yield mixed layer Cape values of 15 to 2,500 joules per kilogram. Deep layer shear profiles will be also quite strong across this region, with effective shear values around and or exceeding 40 knots. These parameters will result in a conditionally favorable environment for supercells and Boeing storm complexes capable of very large hail and damaging winds. That's your key point right there. That's what I kind of can foresee in the models too. The primary forecast uncertainty involves the timing and placement, which is kind of normal. We just don't know exactly when it's going to happen. I think the longer it waits, the more likely you're going to see Boeing segments. But they were kind of like, here, I'll read this to you. 12Z CAM guidance is showing some diversity, so there's some uncertainty there. It looks like they went 30% in the hail area earlier and are kind of second-guessing themselves a little bit, but they're going to keep the slight enhanced risk going, is what I read in that bottom paragraph. Let's go take a closer look at what's going on here. This is the SPC mesoscale analysis page, and this has got all the latest parameters and radar images, and it might be kind of hard for you to see on your browser there, but here's Wisconsin. What you're seeing over Wisconsin right now is 3,000 surface-based joules per kilograms Cape. And that's where those little radar tags have popped up, which are the thunderstorms in central Wisconsin. That's where they are right now. So we take it through time. It looks like the models did not initialize that too well. So that'll be interesting going tonight. But yeah, as we go into tonight, it doesn't really reinforce that instability pool. Something happens to it, or it gets either there's some drying or subsidence or something going on in the atmosphere that reduces the total amount of CAPE. But for starters, it was already not really initializing well, so that'll be interesting. We'll go to some of these other ones here. We're going to take a look at bulk shear, effective bulk shear, and this right now is not great, but the progs show it increasing up towards 45 knots across northwest Wisconsin this evening, right through that enhanced zone. And even 6 hours out from now, that put around 9 p.m., you're going to have most of northern Wisconsin in that 30 to 40 knot shear value there, effective shear, which is really good, which is solid for severe weather potential. And then storm relative helicity here, I believe, pretty strong. So that's supportive of supercells. And supercell composite this evening. Again, I think actually you're probably going to have the best environment right where that enhanced zone, right where they put that enhanced zone in here. I think that's pretty good. I think that's close. And then, yeah, we talked about that. Let's take a look at the radar simulation here. And we'll take it from now, essentially. This is the 18Z NAM that just came out, showing those cells developing in the Duluth area. And we're going to circle basically that enhanced zone that they have in the SPC, like that. And then the slate goes over to here. You're going to watch as these storms come through that zone. Basically, the cells that form around Duluth may be more supercellular in characteristic, and then as they go through time, tend to bow out or cluster up, and then as it comes out of that enhanced zone, it kind of gets into the slight risk there and falls apart, as I mentioned. And then as it moves into central Wisconsin, there's really not much of it left. Actually, southern Wisconsin, I'd be surprised if you get anything really, based on this NAM run. The other thing I was mentioning was that surface-based CAPE pool that exists currently. It seems to be initialized well here in the NAM. The wrap wasn't doing so hot. But as the night goes on, you have this pool here, which becomes capped over and actually just thins out a little bit as you go into the overnight hours. This is after midnight, which is typically as things wane down because you have your convective minimum around here. So, but I think the thing is, again, the concluding remarks are this section here. You got to watch what's going on in there this evening primarily. I think that's a good chance if those storms do form as predicted. So let's talk about the rest of the week. We got something going on Tuesday, and then something on Wednesday to watch that I'm really curious about. This is the Tuesday outlook for this SPC. I'm not going to go look into the discussion. I just think that you're kind of looking at this zone right in here. I think you're going to have cells on Tuesday night. You're going to have cells popping in here, and then they're going to propagate out whatever random direction they want to go, probably more like this. And this is not going to be super organized, but there's going to be something there, and there's probably some severe weather reports in this zone, at least for starters. I don't know how this is going to translate into Wisconsin. Probably not all that well, but there might be some activity in here too. There's on the models, you're seeing somewhat of a retreating cold front or a backdoor front there coming in and pushing that instability back to the west, if not just temporarily, but it's present. So maybe that's why they excluded this section of Wisconsin here, which I don't have a problem with looking at the models. But what we want to talk about now is Wednesday. This is the SPC Outlook for Wednesday, which is, if you're looking at 3 days out, this is a pretty typical thing. Even in even in the strongest events here up here in Wisconsin, but just probabilistic is pretty tied to that. Yeah, this environment is just what they're saying in the SPC here is this environment should be supportive of a supercell development with potential for large hail and wind damage, perhaps an MCS formation later on. A wind damage threat, I can definitely see that being a thing there Wednesday evening into early Thursday morning across Wisconsin. The reason I think this is more of an issue than Tuesday is because it seems to cover a bigger part of Wisconsin. We're more at risk here. There are issues, and we'll talk about that next. Here's a GFS for 12Z GFS from today, showing what's going to go on tonight. You're going to have, this is 6-hour precipitation, so you're basically seeing that right in here. You're going to have some heavy thunderstorm activity on the GFS. I would trust this. I think it's close. As we go into Tuesday, we'll see what it tries to drum up. And actually on the GFS, not too much, but I think maybe the short range models will handle that instability better in the southern eastern part of Minnesota, where the GFS doesn't seem to have anything. But that's fine, because now we're looking at Wednesday, and this is where I'm most concerned, or actually most interested at this time, because we're looking at here. Oh, this is 6. Let's put this around 7 p.m. there on Wednesday evening. You got a low pressure system here that's going to be sliding through Wisconsin, and it's not that it's super strong. It's just that it's there to organize the whole setup. So you have some organization there. It's not total chaos. What the GFS is showing on this 12Z run more differently from what it was showing before is a little bit less in terms of reflectivity across the state, a little bit less precipitation there, and then maybe more development after sunset once the cap weakens. You can kind of see that here around 1 a.m. on Thursday morning, the big red bullseye over southern Minnesota there, or sorry, I apologize, southern Michigan along the eastern shore of Lake Michigan there. You see that. But, I mean, this still could end up anywhere. I wouldn't necessarily put it there. I think I can explain to you why it's putting that there as opposed to over central Wisconsin where the SPC has its outlook zone. See, it's kind of over this fringe here. This is where the GFS. I mean, part of it is, yes, you're going to look at the miles and try to split the difference here because the European is out here with this and the GFS is over here. So here's the European for 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. And if we compare back to the GFS at 7 p.m., they're quite different. So, but this to me signals MCS activity racing through Wisconsin and just messing all kinds of things up there. I think this could be a pretty serious event if the European is right because of what's kind of going on in this zone in terms of instability and kind of the parameters that are pooled there. The European has, I mean, upwards of 40 knots. I mean, this is close to 50, if not 60 knots of effective bulk shear from surface to 500 millibar. This is a lot. This is up there with what you typically get with the most severe weather events. The most severe weather events, I should say. This is, you can get widespread severe weather when you get instability underneath this type of sheared flow. So to me, the European is actually kind of what is the most concerning in terms of severe weather threat. The GFS is sort of flip-flopping a little bit. So that's interesting to watch. And I think that the European has been consistent with what I saw yesterday and what I'm seeing today. It hasn't changed too much. All right, well, let's take a look at this. So here's one thing is the reflectivities, the predicted where the models are putting precipitation in a 6-hour basis or whatever. The next thing to look at is some of the parameters. And, I mean, maybe the best way to just kind of round it all up is to look at the supercell composite. And we're going to go all the way out to Wednesday now. This is actually 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Well, we're on our way there. 7 p.m. on Tuesday. You're seeing that in southeastern Minnesota. You have the oranges and the yellows there, just signifying that maybe that's more of a bullseye for parameters there, kind of where the SPC has their slight risk out there. But as we go into Wednesday now, this is the supercell composite showing way over 10, well over 10. This is to me, anytime you get this going on, with instability underneath it and the threat for convection, this to me is, again, as I said, this is kind of up there with the worst of the worst severe weather potential parameter. For Wisconsin, you just don't see this very often. But this is just one parameter. I'm just trying to show you something, and then the next thing I'm going to show you is going to be like, okay, this is why we're not as certain. But I mean, this to me is something to watch for sure. And this is at 21Z on Wednesday, and this is at, 7 p.m. on Wednesday. So this is something to watch for sure, okay? The issue, I believe, at this moment, at least on the GFS, is the inversion, the capping. As we go into Wednesday at 7 p.m., you got a lot of blues here. This is indicating there's a cap going on here. For a lower cap or a weak cap or no cap at all, you're going to want to see some of the oranges, the reds, the warmer colors. Seeing a lot of blues over Wisconsin, and basically I think once you get into 1 and 2, you're kind of capped off at the surface. Now maybe you're getting something going on elevated wise over the top of it, but at the surface it's kind of hard. But that's kind of what I learned with this lid strength index. And so that might be one of the reasons why the GFS is a little bit more conservative in here. Now, I can't do this kind of parameter for the European right now, but I'm just, something with this is what the bugaboo is. When I look at this, I think if your trigger is strong enough, this will actually cut down on the crep vection, so you get probably a higher quality storm, and a more severe storm, or a more organized system without as much trash in the way. That's what this tells me. Okay, I'm not saying this is going to stop the storms. I'm thinking this might actually help to control them and kind of keep them more organized. Actually, the ones that do form, and as opposed to just being a chaotic blow-up mess that we typically get around here. You know, to get the MCS system, I would like a little bit less cappage going on, but I've seen things go like MCS even when you think it wouldn't. So I really, to me, so anyways, this is just what I'm kind of curious about. Let's take a look at our sounding. When you look at the cap here, I mean, this to me is, it's not like there's a little plateau hanging off. You're at, what is this, 7 p.m. there on Wednesday. Usually you get the cap in the 700 millibar level up in here, and you get a little, like, I'll draw it in. You get the little lip like this. But actually, you're seeing that pretty smoothed off. So, you know, but I mean, so if you take like a, let's see, moist one like here and go up with it, yeah, there's some issues there to watch. But I don't know. To me, this doesn't look bad. I don't know. Let's take a look at some of those other parameters. Here's a key one. All right. You got, well, first of all, at the surface, you got 83 over 75. Now, if it gets, the dew point gets up to 75, I don't think that's too far-fetched. I think you're better off looking at 70 maybe, planning for 70 dew point, with a temperature of in the mid to lower 80s. I think it could actually get warmer than that, but you know, this may end up being a little bit more spread out than what this suggests. But yeah, this kind of this just signals that there's moisture there at the surface or low levels. The other thing I like to look at is the shear. So we're going to look at bulk shear now, on the order of 65 knots. That's, like I said, that's big time. If we go back to this Supercell composite, I took the sounding from basically the center of this thing right here. I took the sounding from right here, and I still got this circle on here. So what I see is a nice veered profile. I see very strong winds here in the mid-levels, kind of coming out of the northwest. So you're going to have, it's going to propagate down this way, and you're going to get your inflows in like this. And then you're going to have the twisting at the lower levels like that. So you got a lot of shear going on. Now, if you're interested in tornadoes, now I wouldn't go out there and stretch that minute and talk too much about that right now. I'm just looking at the surface to 1 kilometer shear, and I see that that's pretty strong. If you get an MCS, that'll be even stronger. But I think when you're dealing with an MCS, you're thinking more about widespread wind damage as opposed to individual tornadoes. I know you get the mesovortex type spin-ups on the front edge, but sometimes it's like, you know, how do you differentiate between straight line and that, and what's the bigger concern, a tornado or, you know, a county-wide swath of 70 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts? You know what I mean? So, in my opinion, a widespread wind event is probably more concerning. And I think that's possible here. I see it. I think the mid-level lapse rates are actually pretty decent. I don't see a lot of gappage, though, in this moisture part of this. So, moist adiabat, when you look at these levels in here, it actually seems pretty moist. For a more textbook or clear-cut or slam dunk, I would like to see this moist adiabat kind of go over in here. So you have some drier air up in here that gets worked into the system and brought down, and it cools better. This to me seems very moist, and the cape seems somewhat skinny, at least relative to this moist adiabat, but I don't know. And then, of course, the STP, significant tornado parameter, because that's what everybody loves to look at right in here. Pretty high, kind of out of the lower range and into the mid-range, just kind of signaling there's something beyond just the average here going on in terms of that part of it. So, all right, let's look at, I actually showed you that already. let's look at some other things here for Wednesday. I want to look at surface-based CAPE off the GFS, and this is a little bit different region that I'm looking at here from what I'm used to. Great Lakes region here in weather.cod.edu. And so we go into Wednesday. What I like about this, if I'm a storm chaser, is I see that there's a big pool of instability here. This is not, no joke, this is like solid, okay? That's what you typically want to see. Even though it might be capped or whatever else, see here at 4 or 5 p.m. there in the evening, there's a little bit lack of cappage. And actually, I think the GFS does form stuff right in here around that time frame. So that's basically indicating that, you know, if you're going to have, in the worst case scenario, if your cap is really strong, you may get something to pop right here along the lakeshore kind of thing. That's what it's kind of suggesting during the mid to late afternoon. And then you'd wait for the bigger show later on if that were to develop kind of out here. So I don't know. I don't want to get too far ahead of this, but this is sort of what we're thinking right now. We'll go back and take one more look at this live map. It looks like we got a hail report here. Oops. Whoops. All right. Well, so we had a quarter, penny-sized hail and 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Plover, so that's in Portage County. That was at 2:55, so it's close to a half hour ago. It's 3:22 p.m. now. And somehow I got stuck on this. There we go. Mode. Here's my location here, and I'm just kind of sitting, hanging out. If something pops bigger, I'll go after it in this zone. I'm just happy to have something nearby. And as we go take a look at this section of the country, you got radar tags forming in here, so you probably see some development in here at some point, and then it's going to cross through here. My prediction. But anyway, okay, good for now. I will be updating the website here in the days to come. If I think that Wednesday is going to be a bigger deal than what I've kind of already laid out, or indeed a significant event, I will do another video. But until then, and otherwise, I guess I will talk to you guys another time. Thanks for watching, and talk to you soon.